Hi, welcome to the spring 2024 semester at Austin Community College and to a course entitled Human Growth and Development, a psychology course that I like to affectionately refer to as womb to tomb psychology. And that's because it's a study of human development from conception until death. I'm Dan Grandgard, and I will be your professor this semester. And I'm kind of known for backing everything that we study up with a real life case example. You know, a lot of textbooks have examples of psychological concepts that the text writer either just dreamed up as an example or heard about as an example. But I've had so many different experiences working with people in diverse environments that I can back all these technical psychological constructs up with real life examples. So let me begin by giving you a little bit about my own background and how I came to experience all of these things myself. I grew up in Fond du Lac, Wisconsin, which is a town of about 45,000. There's maybe 100,000 people in the county. While I was in high school in Fond du Lac, I was a youth worker at the YMCA. And I did that all through high school. And then the summer before I started college, I was a teacher's aide at an elementary school where I assisted in teaching science and physical education to students in grades 2 through 6. I went off to college at Baylor University where I earned 3 degrees. I have a bachelor's degree with a major in sociology and a minor in psychology. And then I earned a master's degree in educational psychology and a doctorate in educational psychology with a minor in elementary education. The summer between my freshman and sophomore years at Baylor, I went home to Fond du Lac, and I was a playground director, which was a fabulous job to have. The playgrounds were open from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, and they were scattered throughout the city. Some were in parks, some were at school grounds. It just so happened that I was assigned to what turned out to be maybe the most popular playground. At any one time, we had as many as several hundred people present. The playgrounds would compete against each other in terms of softball and track and things like that. And, you know, we had handicrafts for the little kids and so on. And you know, it was a fabulous job. I mean, I got paid good money for playing with kids from 9 in the morning till 9 at night. Another similar kind of position I had before I became a professional, if you will, was 2 summers after that, I was a teacher's aide at a kindergarten in Waco. My sophomore year at Baylor, I took a social work course where you got credit for community volunteer work. And I ended up being given my background as a playground director and a youth worker at the Y and so on, I ended up being the volunteer physical education teacher at a school in Waco that was only for kindergarten children. Back in the day, kindergarten was only offered for low-income children. And so I would go to this school a couple of days a week as the volunteer PE teacher, if you will. Well, they liked my work so much that that following summer, the Waco ISD hired me to continue being the physical education teacher for the children at this school, where the whole school was nothing but kindergarten kids. While I was working on my master's degree then in educational psychology, I managed to land a teaching assistantship. Actually, it was called a graduate assistantship, where I was the graduate assistant to a faculty member. And because of my background working with young kids, I was assigned to be the graduate assistant to the head of the early childhood program. And so I assisted her in teaching classes, especially a course in educational psychology that was geared towards kindergarten children. And then when I was working on my doctorate in educational psychology at Baylor, because I had that background as the graduate assistant to the head of the early childhood program, I spent 2.5 years supervising over 200 kindergarten student teachers. And I also taught a student teaching seminar for kindergarten teachers. While I was working on my doctorate in educational psychology, I landed a teaching fellowship where I independently taught a course in educational psychology for elementary teachers. And I did that for 2.5 years. So that's kind of led me up to where, I'm finally graduating. I've got a doctorate. And my first real position as a professional psychologist I was a school psychologist for the Education Service Center Region 12 in Waco. I might mention that I was the only doctoral level school psychologist serving 81 school districts in 12 counties. I'd get up in the morning, I'd drive about 60 miles out to some small town where I would give some IQ tests or something. That wasn't my idea of becoming a psychologist. And so, I kept applying for positions other places. One summer at Baylor, I shared an apartment with a guy from Austin. And one weekend, we were out of food and out of money, and he said, this would be a good time to go visit my parents. And so we came down here to Austin. I immediately fell in love with Austin, and I said, boy, that's where I want to live someday. And so I kept applying for positions here, and I ended up landing a position as a school psychologist for the Austin Independent School District. And I did that for the next 8 years. Every year I was assigned to 3 or 4 school buildings, typically an elementary school, a middle school, and a high school. The 2 high schools I worked in were LBJ High School over on the east side of Austin, and I was there a couple of years. I spent 5 years at Austin High, right downtown. So the only school I survived at the whole 8 years was Oak Hill Elementary. In fact, I like to say I survived 3 principals. Principals tend to like to hire their own staff, and they can be quite challenging to work with. I survived 3 different ones. So anyway, that was my school psychology career. Um, all psychologists reach a point where they want to do things their own way. And, they decide they're going to start a private practice. And so I started a private practice in the evenings. And I had a friend who was a gynecologist, obstetrician, and he let me use his office rent-free in the evenings. So I started a private practice in psychology in a gynecology office. There's lots of funny stories I could tell you about that experience. But anyway, I would work for the school district in the daytime. And then I was supposed to work from like 8 to 4, although often my day didn't end till closer to 5. But, then I would go to my private practice office and I'd work till about 7 or 8 o'clock at night. And then I'd work on Saturday mornings. The great thing about being a school psychologist is you get the summers off. And so in the summers, I could devote my full attention to my private practice. So anyway, there was a student at Austin High when I was the school psychologist there. And by the way, while I was a school psychologist, I also supervised school psychology interns from the University of Texas at Austin and from Texas State University down in San Marcos. Well, there was a student at Austin High who was graduating in the top 10 in her class, but although she had a perfect A average, she hadn't taken as many advanced placement courses and honors courses as other students. So there was no way she could be the valedictorian. And this made her very angry. And so she started sending death threats to the principal and the assistant principal and people like that. And one that she sent was to the assistant principal, whose first name was Jack, and she sent him a poem that said, "Death be nimble, death be quick, forget the candlestick, kill Jack." And then you always knew it was from her because she had her own little logo that looked like this, that she would draw on the bottom of the note. Well, when you do that, you get to meet the school psychologist. And as you can probably predict, this young lady also had a psychiatrist on the outside. And I started consulting with him, and he and I really hit it off. And he suggested it might be more appropriate if I would move my private practice into his office, which I did. He started giving me a lot of referrals for psychological testing. And like I said, in the summer, I would have all day to focus on my private practice. A lot of times when I would hit it off with the patient during the testing sessions, he'd say, "Why don't you go ahead and do the therapy too?" A lot of psychiatrists are more into prescribing medications than they are into doing psychotherapy. So, suddenly, and the psychiatrist that I was working with, by the way, specialized in children and adolescents. In fact, he was the only child psychiatrist on both the city and state's health insurance plans. So we had a diversity of people coming through the office to get evaluated and for counseling and that sort of thing. He also helped me acquire clinical privileges at a number of psychiatric hospitals in town. And, it got to the point where I was getting quite busy in my private practice. The school district wanted to give me a promotion, but it was going to mean that I had to work year round for the school district, and I didn't want to do that. I was enjoying private practice too much. And so I resigned from the school district and I went into full-time private practice. My office was at Medical Science Center over on 38th Street, and just down the street from Shoal Creek Hospital, which was probably the primary psychiatric facility that I was spending a lot of time working in. The psychiatrist I officed with enjoyed being a psychiatrist, but he hated dealing with insurance companies. And an opportunity came along for him to move to Dallas, where he would become chief psychiatrist for an adolescent unit at a psychiatric hospital. And so he departed for Dallas. He tried to get me to come with him, but I didn't want to leave Austin. And so, I continued on in my private practice for about the next year. And then there was a large clinic in Dallas that was opening a satellite clinic in Austin. And they hired me to eventually become their chief psychologist, their director of intern training, and their director of testing. And this clinic was, the Austin branch was a huge operation. At the clinic, we had as many as a half dozen psychiatrists, equal number of psychologists, clinical social workers, licensed professional counselors, nurses. We had our own day hospital and our own 20-bed inpatient unit at Shoal Creek Hospital. And for a 7-year period there, I ended up merging my private practice with that clinic. And for a 7-year period there, every other weekend, I did group therapy at Shoal Creek Hospital on the weekends. A couple of the psychiatrists specialized in children, but there was another one who specialized in geriatrics. And so, I found myself going to the hospital and doing a lot of dementia evaluations and things like that. So, basically I was working with the whole lifespan from, preschoolers to senior citizens. The clinic fell into financial difficulties because of managed healthcare kind of destroying the whole healthcare system, and ended up getting sold to a chain of clinics out in California. The Austin branch was closed down. I went back into private practice. I opened an office out in Westlake Hills, and I did that for a number of years. It wasn't long after I restarted up a private practice that an opportunity came along to teach classes at Austin Community College, which I've done for the last quarter century. If you're adding up all the years, I'm about 100 years old, I guess. Anyway, after I taught at ACC for a couple of years, an opportunity came along to also teach courses at St. Edward's University. And so, I was teaching like 3 classes at ACC and maybe 3 or 4 at St. Ed's, and I only had time on Fridays to do my private practice. And, I was only bringing in about enough money to cover my overhead. And then an opportunity came along to work at ACC full-time, half-time teaching, and then half-time counseling and advising students in what's now called student accessibility services. And this is something I enjoyed immensely. So that's kind of a background of all the different positions I've had to give you real life examples to back up everything we studied. Oh, by the way, I have 2 adult children of my own and 3 grandsons, including a set of twins who are currently 8 years old. My oldest grandson is 13, a teenager. So anyway, I got experience as a parent and a grandparent, and also as a Little League coach, both in baseball and last winter I coached my twin grandson's basketball team. So that was a lot of fun. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. When you're finished with the orientation video, as soon as you get a chance, shoot me an email and tell me a little bit about yourself so I can get to know more about you. Where did you grow up? What's your major? What's your career goal? What do you like to do for fun? I've had a couple of students actually make a little video like this and send it to me, and those have been really fun to watch. So anyway, that's a little bit about me. Let's take a look at the course syllabus, which is posted on Blackboard. And the first thing I would tell you is that the textbook for the course is by Kathleen Berger. This is it, The Developing Person Through the Lifespan. It's currently the 12th edition. It's an excellent book. I might add that I have been one of the editors over the last quarter century of most all of the developmental psychology textbooks that have come out. I've been an official reviewer of those by the publishers. And there's a lot of good ones out there, but I've stuck with Berger's text all these years because I think it's especially good. I've gotten to know Kathleen Berger. I've had dinner with her on multiple occasions. She's got a fascinating background. She's been a professor at Bronx Community College for many years. And I think you'll find the book very readable, and she does have a lot of good examples to illustrate things that we will study. As far as the course purpose, it's a survey of the physical, cognitive, emotional, and social factors in human development from conception until death. There will be an emphasis on understanding people at various ages of development in order to be more patient with them and to interact with them more effectively. How many of you have kids? Those of you who don't, have you ever wondered why they act up in the line at the grocery store or someplace like that? Or maybe you have an aging grandparent that you had a conversation with not too long ago, and about 10 minutes into the conversation, they started talking about stuff you had already talked about. Excuse me. Why is that? Well, this course will help you better understand people at other stages than you are currently at or experiencing. One more thing I might mention about the textbook, these books are extremely expensive. And if you can get an earlier edition of the text, go for it. I will keep you updated on all the latest developments in the field. And, as soon as books hit the press, they're already outdated. So, if you can get cheaper, the 11th edition or the 10th edition, go for it. The only thing I would caution you about is the pages might not closely correspond to the ones in this edition. As far as the course requirements are, read the textbook. But when it comes to what I want you to get out of the course, before you read chapters of the textbook, take a look at the learning objectives for the chapters in your course syllabus, and these begin on the bottom of page 5. When I was a student, I was never very good at outguessing professors in terms of what was important in a textbook and what maybe wasn't, at least for testing purposes. And, I'd get my textbook and I'd write in the margins and I'd underline stuff and I'd put asterisks by stuff, and none of that stuff was on the test. And this stuff I thought was insignificant, there'd be all kinds of test questions about. That will not happen in here. So before you read chapters of the text, read the learning objectives in the course syllabus, again, that start on the bottom of page 5 and go on, because these are the things I would want you to focus on in the textbook. Anything else is for your own interest. But the other thing I would tell you is, I don't typically ever ask questions on tests that just came out of the textbook. Pretty much everything on tests comes from lectures that I post that include PowerPoint slides and so forth. Some of them are video lectures. Some are audio lectures with accompanying PowerPoint slides. Some are articles that are recent that contain information I would want you to study, and so on. And, you could actually make it through this course without even buying the textbook. What the book's there more for than anything else is to further clarify concepts that maybe need more clarification from your perspective. They're not there just to read and regurgitate back to me or something like that. So keep that in mind when it comes to reading the textbook. Second requirement there on the front page is to regularly check the announcements on Blackboard. I will communicate with you by posting announcements on Blackboard. If there's a really critical thing I want to make sure you call your attention to, I'll also email you for that. And by the way, in this course, always use your official ACC email account. Please don't send me emails from your personal email, because it always ends up in my email as, better watch out, this could be contain some kind of virus or something or other. So always use your official ACC email account, okay? Third requirement is to exercise self-discipline. This is an asynchronous class, and so, we're not meeting on certain days for sure. And in that respect, I'm not taking roll, although I have to certify that you've been attending this course, and the way I do that is by knowing that you have emailed me your personal introduction, within the next couple of weeks. I will have to certify that you've been here, and I have no other way of knowing that other than you sending me a personal introduction of yourself. And so it's critical that you do that, not just so that I get to know you better, but so that I know you are connecting with me. Okay? Beginning on page 4 of the course syllabus and going on to page 5. Excuse me. I've got cedar allergies big time right now. I went to lunch out in the Bee Cave area, and that whole part of town's nothing but cedar trees. So if I'm coughing a lot and all of that, no, don't worry. I don't have COVID or something like that. But on page 4 and 5 is an outline of what topic we'll be covering at what time. And I've set this up as if it's a Tuesday, Thursday class, okay? It just works out more conveniently that way to see what topic is on what day. And so, notice today, hopefully you're watching this on the first day of class in the spring semester, which happens to be January 16th. And today, it's a course orientation, and we're going over the syllabus and all of that. So try and stick with this outline. Otherwise, you might find yourself falling behind. And, a lot of students, their New Year's resolution is, I'm not going to fall behind this semester. And you start off really doing great. And then you got a test in one class, and you're focusing on that. And then you kind of let other classes slide because you're focusing on that. Before you know it, you're way behind. So try and stick with this outline if you can. I think you'll find that helpful. Point number 4, successfully complete 4 examinations. And more information about the tests begins on page 3 of your course syllabus. The tests are multiple choice, some true, false, mainly multiple choice. I write my own questions. I don't use a test bank or something like that. As a matter of fact, I've written the test banks for a number of textbooks, including the one for Philip Zimbardo's intro text at Stanford University. I wrote the practice test for that course, and my paperback was shrink wrapped with his text and used all over the country. You might remember Philip Zimbardo. If you took Intro to PSYC, you may have seen some of those videos that he's in. In fact, there's a couple of them that I'll have you watch that are connected with this course. But he was maybe one of the premier psychology teachers in the country over the years. So I write my own test questions, and you will take them on Blackboard. They're not timed. You'll have a week to complete them. And just again, if you look at your course outline beginning on page 4, the first test will become available to take on Thursday, February the 8th. You have a week to complete it, and so by Thursday, February the 15th, by the end of the day that day, you have to have completed and submitted test 1. Then test 2 will become available on Tuesday, March the 5th. You have a week to complete it, and it has to be completed by the end of the day on Tuesday, March 19th. And then test 3, I'm looking on page 5 of the course syllabus, will be available on April the 16th. You have to have completed it by the end of the day on April 23rd. And by the way, the end of the day means midnight. 11:59 p.m. The only test that you won't have a week to work on it is the last test, test 4. And by the way, test 4 is not a comprehensive final. It's only over the last topics that we study. And you have a little less than a week. You know, it'll become available on Tuesday, May the 7th, but it needs to be completed by Sunday, that following Sunday, which is May the 12th. Okay, so the tests are open notes, open book. But something I would tell you about that is don't think you cannot study any of the lectures or PowerPoints or read any of the articles and then just look up the answers. That won't work. When it comes to writing tests, I have an extensive background in test construction, and when we're writing tests, we're looking at 3 main types of questions. There are knowledge level questions, application level questions, comprehension level questions, and then application level questions. And a knowledge level question would be something like just a definition or something like that, or a little fact of some kind. Yeah, those are the kinds of things you could look up. My tests don't have very many of those kinds of questions. A comprehension level question would be, can you pick out an example of something? And the application level question would be, can you take what you've been studying and apply it in some way, make a prediction in some way? Most of these multiple choice questions of mine are at the comprehension and application levels, okay? So you have a week to work on tests, but don't think you can just look the answers up. If you try that strategy, you're going to find yourself panicking. My advice is to take the test on the day it's officially available. Because if you delay it and you just kind of work on it all week, well, then what happens is you get behind. For example, if you look at page 4 of the course syllabus, so let's say you start working, you don't take the entire test on the first day it's available, and you work on it until the deadline. Well, now you're 2 whole topics behind. So my advice is to take them as soon as you can after they're available, and not delay it. Each test will also have a bonus essay question. Some people like essay questions. Some people hate them. I always offer one as a bonus where you can earn up to 5 extra points on your score on the test. If you choose to answer a bonus essay, it must be submitted either prior to or at the time you submit the objective part of the test. This is bonus points. It's not extra credit. I don't offer extra credit. Extra credit is things that some people make available, and it's for people who are not doing well and they're desperate to try and get their grade boosted up. That's not what this is. This is bonus points. It's taking a test and being able to earn up to 5 bonus points added on to your score at the time you take the test. It's not extra credit. My attitude toward extra credit is if you're not doing well and you're working on extra credit to try and get your grade boosted, then you're not studying the material for the next test and you're right back where you started. So I don't offer extra credit. I don't offer retests. If you got a week to do a test and it's multiple choice and it's open book, open notes, there's no need for a retest. Most people taking this course do quite well. And I don't think it's because it's a super easy course. I think it's because most of the people signing up for this course are serious students. A lot of them are pursuing like a health science related career like nursing or sonography or dental hygiene or something like that. Or they're psychology majors and they hope to get advanced degrees in psychology. And consequently, people who take this course tend to do quite well. And so that's a little bit about the tests. Down at the bottom of page 3 is the grading key. 90 to 100 is an A, 80 to 89 is a B, 70 to 79 is a C, 60 to 69 is a D, and less than 60 is failing, okay? The other course requirement, besides taking the 4 exams and introducing yourself to me, is you need to read and write a book review. This can be one of 2 types of books. It could be a biography or an autobiography. About anybody. It doesn't have to be about a psychologist. I just love reading biographies and autobiographies. This is a course in lifespan development, and that's what a biography is all about. I just finished one today that was enlightening. It's called Camera Girl. And it's about the coming of age of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. Fascinating book. I've got another one. I got this one for Christmas. I'm about to start tonight. It's called Connery, Sean Connery. Best known as Bond, James Bond. I'm looking forward to reading it. I find biographies and autobiographies absolutely fascinating, and they really fit in with the world of developmental psychology. So you could read one of those kind of books about somebody you're interested in. Or you could read a book related to developmental psychology, and this could be a book like How to Get Your Kid to Eat, or Surviving Life with Your Teenager, or something like that, or How to Help Your Aging Parent. It could be any of those kinds of things, or something really technical. So it could be a book related to developmental psychology, or it could be a biography or autobiography. The catch is I have to approve your title. And I won't approve any title that I don't think will get you a good grade. And everyone in the class has to read a different book. So I will post on Blackboard a list of books that have already been taken, have already been approved by me. And so when you're looking for a book, maybe you lucked out and you're like me and you just read a book during the holidays. Then, all you'll have to do is write up the report. You don't even have to read the book. But a lot of information in your syllabus is related to this assignment. And so if you choose to read a book related to developmental psychology, then you need to write a one-page, single-spaced, typed book review. Now, you can go down to about size 8 font and I'll still be able to read it. But, and you can play with the margins, but try and get it down to one page. And in your book report, there's sample book reviews on Blackboard. Your sample book review, your book review should first of all have a bibliographic entry, and that includes the name of the author, the title of the book, the year the book was published, and the name of the publisher, and then some information about the author. And in there I want to know, how did the author become an authority on this topic? I'm talking about a report for a developmental psychology related book. So how did they become an authority on this topic? Where did they go to school? Where have they worked? I'm not interested in whether or not they were ever on some talk show. Being an authority gets you on the talk show. Being on the talk show doesn't make you an authority. So, how did they become an authority on this topic? And then, what were the main points of the book? What was the thesis of the book? And then finally, an evaluation section. And by that, I mean, how did the author support or fail to support the main points? Did they quote statistical studies that have been done? Did they quote other authorities in the field, and so on? One book I've banned, and I won't let anybody read, is Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus. Dr. John Gray got a mail order doctorate from somewhere in Canada that has since been shut down. And the whole book is nothing but his opinion on things. He doesn't credit anybody. There is no list of references in the back or anything like that. He's laughing all the way to the bank because he sold a lot of copies of it. And I couldn't care less if your book was #1 on the New York Times bestseller list. I want to know, did the author have some bona fide credentials, and how did they support the thesis? If you want to read a good book that talks about differences between men and women, read The Male Brain by Lou Ann Brisendine or The Female Brain by Lou Ann Brisendine. Relatively small paperback. Half the book is a list of references. In fact, this book I just finished reading about Camera Girl, the coming of age of Jacqueline Bouvier Kennedy. There's almost 100 pages of references in the back of it. It's like the reading part of it's about 300 pages, but the book's 400 pages long, and all the rest is citations. You know, this guy didn't just make all this stuff up. The author did good research. Lou Ann Brissendine does good research. And she's got good credentials. You know, she's like physician, professor at a medical school, graduate of Ivy League schools, and, you know, all that kind of stuff. So that's a book on developmental psychology. If you read a book related to a biography or an autobiography, then you can write up to a 2-page report, and it should contain and again, I've got samples of the report and samples of the structured grading form that I use to grade these reports posted here on Blackboard. But if you read a book related to a biography or an autobiography, then let's see, fumbling through my syllabus here, there's some more details on page 4, top of page 4 of your course syllabus. And for that kind of report, you would have a bibliographic entry. Again, the author's name, title of the book, the year it was published, the name of the publisher, and then there will be sections on highlighting the individual's life and career accomplishments, life setbacks and challenges. You know, anybody who's anybody has had some real challenges in life. That book I just read, I got a totally different perspective on Jacqueline Kennedy than I ever had over the years. What lessons were conveyed to you by the person's testimony? What was your favorite snapshot of the person's life? And then you have to write a brief ecological analysis based on Bronfenbrenner's ecological theory, which you'll learn quite a bit about in the next week. Or maybe even this week. And then finally, your personal evaluation of the book. So the biography-autobiography report can be as long as 2 pages. Okay? Your course grade will be based on, if you look at top of page 4 of the course syllabus, your grade in the course will be your average of your scores on the 4 tests plus the book report. Book report counts the same as a test. And so, you know, if your test average is lower than you wanted, here's a good way to boost it up. Each test and the book report is worth 20% of your grade. Few other things on page 3. if you have a disability and need any kind of accommodations during the semester, please see to it that I receive your accommodation letter as soon as possible so that I can make arrangements for those kinds of things. But then also on page 4, I would call your attention to ACC's policies related to academic honesty. The things that mainly will get students in trouble are things like plagiarism. The president of Harvard recently resigned, and one of the issues related to that was it turns out that all kinds of information in her doctoral dissertation weren't properly cited, that she basically borrowed information from other people and then passed it off as her writing. This is the ultimate sin in academia. And so you can borrow other people's ideas all you want, but give them credit for it. Don't try to pass it off as your ideas. And this gets into, don't think you can buy a book report online or something like that. I occasionally had students who attempted to cheat. It doesn't happen very often, but it's every once in a while I've encountered some of these people. Years ago, I had a guy that handed in a book report that I knew he didn't write. And I called him into my office and I said, I need to talk to you about your book report. You didn't write it. Oh, yeah, I did. Oh, it's all my work. I said, well, no, it's not. I said, here, let me show you on my computer where you can buy it. And he was like, okay, yeah, I admit it. I didn't write it. I said to him, how much did you pay for it? He said, $30. I said, wow. And it's a C report. It's always a dead giveaway when it's not in the right format. I said, it's a C report. For $30, you should have at least bought an A report. And now that I know you didn't write it, it's an F report. Please don't do anything so foolish. The purpose of the assignment is to enlighten you and for you to acquire knowledge that you can apply, not to see what somebody else can write. And the other thing is collusion, cheating on tests. Don't think you can get together with somebody else in the class and work on the test together on your separate computers. In fact, by the way, you'll be submitting your book report through Blackboard, and it's automatically screened for plagiarism by a high-tech computer program. So just a word of caution. After you complete a test, your Blackboard will immediately score your test and you'll be able to see what you made on Blackboard. You won't see what you missed, though, until everyone in the course has finished the test, and then that information will be available on Blackboard. Okay, well, I think I've covered most everything in the syllabus. Just a couple of other things. If you need to consult with me, on the top of page 2, we can arrange a meeting through Zoom, and I'll be glad to answer any questions you have. By the way, back to tests. There's no reason not to do well on tests, besides it being open book, open notes. Before each test, I will also post on Blackboard test review questions. And these test review questions come right out of the test. I'll never forget, some students that didn't do well on tests, and I go, well, how did you study for it? Well, I read the book, and that's not what you should have been doing. I said, did you study the test review questions? What test review questions? The ones that are posted on Blackboard. Also, before every test, I will have a live test review session on Zoom. And you can attend that, and you can ask questions. And I try to pick a time that most people would be available, usually in the evenings. But I also record the sessions, so if you can't make it, you can at least review the recording and see what questions your classmates asked. So this is a great time to clarify any information that you're not sure about. So, that's it. I look forward to working with you this semester, and zip off to me as soon as you can your self-introduction.